So a cochlear implant is an extremely advanced type of hearing aid. It's a device that picks up sound and then changes the signal of sound into an electric signal, and we put this cochlear implant into the cochlea, which is the organ of hearing. This allows then they pick up the signals from there and actually give the brain the signal that a sound has been received. But this is normally done in people who have profound hearing loss. A good example of how profound it is would be that they would need to, if they were standing next to the police barrier by the runway, they would feel the plane landing, but they wouldn't hear it. So it's 120 decibels, that's a plane landing, and that's how loud they would need to basically sort of lose their hearing to be able to get one of these cochlear implants.
And why was it decided that this particular service should be repatriated to Gibraltar?
Sure. So we have our visiting team that comes over from the UK, and in discussions with one of my colleagues, it was realised that there was a lot of cost to the GHA, but also sort of like disruption to family time, and in particular sort of between the visits before the implant, then the surgery itself, which they would take between 6 to 8 weeks, having to stay in the UK, and then a further 4 visits afterwards. So by doing all the pre-operative, the operation itself, and the what's called the switch-on stages, all the post-operative stages here in Gibraltar, so it reduces that huge undertaking for the patients having to stay this length of time in the UK. It saves us money as well, and the patients can have the operation and on the same day go home.
Seeing someone being able to hear for the first time, it must be quite emotional.
Yeah, it's an extremely emotional moment. You can see everyone welling up because, you know, some people may have not heard for 20, 30, 40, 50 years, and for them to start hearing sounds, and in particular, well, the first thing that they normally do is that they think that someone else is talking back to them, and actually they don't realise that they're hearing their own voices for the first time. And it literally makes everyone cry.
Oh.
Yeah.
Could you tell us about what some of the patients have said after receiving their implants?
Sure. They are all delighted. They all basically sort of like highlight how much of a life changer it is to most of them, and really sort of like, you know, how they're able to, as I said, that social interaction, the interactions with their partners, the friends, and in some cases also sort of like being able to keep and or develop their job progression, because clearly it's well known that having a significant hearing loss can impact your, you know, your development and your potential future earnings. So actually being able to, you know, keep that job rather than being moved or changed around is huge for them.
Oh, incredible. Who would be eligible for this going forward?
So we encourage everyone who thinks that they have a hearing loss to get a referral to our department. Clearly, there are very, very strict criteria that we stick to. The criteria has to be met, and then there are further assessments that have to be done. So it's not just as simple as, I think I've got a little bit of a hearing loss, or I don't hear that well. These are people who have profound hearing loss. And as I was saying to you, that is given as an example is, you know, someone who really, really can't hear at all. And at that stage, then there are other steps that need to be taken.
Could you just tell us a bit more about the procedure? Is it a lengthy procedure? Is it particularly risky, you know?
Well, yes and no. It's not a particularly lengthy procedure. I have to say that my colleagues, you know, Mr. Khalil and Professor Saeed, who come over and give us that support, have done thousands of these. It takes about between an hour and a half to 2 hours. So in relative terms for us, it's quite a short procedure. There are risks, clearly, sort of like, you know, you are working sort of like 2 or 3 millimeters away from the brain, and you are working sort of like very close to or going into the organ of hearing, which is also the organ of balance. So there are risks with that. But clearly, sort of like, you know, the more we do, the better we get at them. But also sort of in particular, you know, this has been a procedure that's now been done for 20, 30, 40 years, and it's becoming much safer and, you know, getting fantastic results all around.
Excellent. Are there any other services you're looking at repatriating to the Rock?
Yep, we've also been very lucky to have started doing what's called a stapedectomy procedure, which is basically sort of like for there are other types of hearing loss that with other equipment that was bought recently, we've been able to do the first 4 of those, and that is also sort of like delivering the a sort of a cost saving, because these people definitely can't fly for 8 weeks because of the risk of the change in the pressures with the flying is extremely sort of like sensitive to it. So we've already started doing that, and that's something that we'll continue to develop, hopefully.